Good morning. Welcome to the Metro Board activities for April 10th of 2025. I'm Valerie Santos, Chair of the Metro Board. To start us off, I'll ask our Chief Safety and Readiness Officer, Teresa Impastato, to provide today's update. Safety contact.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the event of an alarm activation, we'll exit this conference room via the glass doors, proceeding into the lobby where we'll await further instructions from our security team. If we are instructed to exit the building, I'll lead the group to our designated assembly point while the security team coordinates with first responders. There's an AED located at the entry desk, and in the event of a medical emergency, I'll retrieve the AED and render aid while we await emergency services. Lastly, restrooms are located in the vestibule area adjacent to this conference room. Metro employees receive extensive training to ensure their ability to provide safe and reliable service. Our staff are prepared to respond to unexpected events throughout the system, and the Metro Integrated Command and Communication Center provides 24/7 monitoring, oversight, and direction of our operation to ensure rapid response to any issues. Here are some tips for customers to communicate any emergency concerns when you use the system. Metro employees are dispersed throughout the system every day. If you observe an unsafe condition or need assistance, approach a uniformed employee at any time. Call boxes are mounted on pylons on station platforms to enable passengers to report any emergency directly to the station manager. Call boxes are also located on each rail car, enabling any rider to report an emergency to the operator, who's in constant radio communication with the control center. Metro bus operators are also in constant communication with the Metro Integrated Command and Communication Center on the bus radio and are able to request any emergency assistance as needed. For additional information to keep yourself safe and enjoy your Metro ride, please see the rider guide at wmata.com. This concludes our safety contact.
Thank you, Ms. Impastato. So welcome to this meeting of the board's executive committee. I will note that board member Drummer is joining us remotely today. Since this is our first public meeting of the day, I'll ask Ms. Ellison, our board corporate secretary, to please call the roll.
Chair Santos.
Present.
Vice Chair Smedberg.
Present.
Vice Chair McAndrew.
Present.
Director Klein.
Present.
Director Haddon-Lowe.
Present.
Director Letourneau.
Present.
Director Drummer.
Present.
Director Martin Proctor.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. So we have today's agenda in front of us for approval. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now to the approval of prior minutes. We have minutes from our meeting on February 27th and the executive sessions on February 27 and March 13 before us for approval. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. We have one item on today's agenda, which is a report by our Inspector General. So I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Amron to provide any highlights from the report and answer questions.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. I am pleased to present WMATA's data center cost optimization audit. I would like to first thank the Chief Digital Officer, Judd Nicholson, and his management team for their cooperation and support during this audit. The objective of the audit was to determine whether WMATA has implemented reasonable data center cost reduction initiatives or strategies. OIG has made 19 recommendations to improve cost efficiency and oversight across WMATA's data center operations. WMATA management has concurred in our recommendations and has already begun to take corrective action. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
All right. We appreciate your report and thank you for providing more details to the board in prior session. I think, is there anyone who has any follow-up? Yes?
Yeah, I'll just say I thought that the audit was well done. I appreciate the collaboration with the DM team, which was hard to understand exactly if we were direct messaging or what we were doing. But in terms of follow-up, so it seems that there's general concurrence and alignment towards improvement. How do you and your team plan to track progress and report back to the board on that in the coming weeks and months?
So we will identify the number of caps that need to be determined based on the 19 recommendations. It would be no more than 19 caps. We will continue to monitor the caps at a regular basis along with DM. We also plan to report on those caps and the progress on a minimum of a quarterly basis to the board.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I'm not this might surprise some folks in the room. I'm not a technology enabled individual. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not like Jose. But I think, we're turning the corner on evolution or revolution on technology here at WMATA. That said, the findings are a little concerning about where we've come from and where we're looking to go. So I think that this is kind of that critical audit of if we are turning that corner, right? And how we turn that corner is really important. So appreciate the team's work. Look forward to further follow-up.
Thank you.
Director Lowe.
Yeah, great point, Joe. I'll just chime in and say that I think that the key takeaway from the audit for me was how much this validates the general manager's decision to reorganize how we're approaching IT at WMATA and to, elevate digital transformation within the org chart and the leadership team. I appreciate that leadership. Like, I think in the audit, the way that they take ownership of dealing with this situation and creating a plan to move forward is something commendable.
Thanks, Director Lowe. Anyone else? Okay. With no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned, and I will turn the floor over to Mr. Letourneau to begin Finance and Capital Committee.
Thank you, Chair Santos, and welcome to today's meeting of the Finance and Capital Committee. I'm Matt Letourneau, Chair of the committee. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to move approval of the agenda as presented. Are there any objections by members of the committee? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now to the approval of minutes. We have the minutes of our March 27th meeting before us for approval. Are there objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. We have one item on our agenda today, which is adoption of our FY26 operating and capital budget and the FY26-31 capital improvement program. There are several updates to the budget as we discussed at the last meeting. Changes on the operating side to include about $20 million in savings. And then as a result of board discussion that's occurred over the last several weeks, changes to the capital budget to defer expenditures of about $200 million that were previously planned for FY26 and 27 that are now being delayed until FY28 or beyond. The reason for this is really a recognition of the economic uncertainty that the region is facing. Obviously, we're well aware of the capital budget cliff that this organization faces absent a regional solution, which is, of course, the subject of DMV moves and many other discussions. But continued efforts on the part of the management team at Metro, as well as the board, to do our part to try to make it a little bit easier on our jurisdictional partners. So before I turn it over to our finance team, perhaps the general manager can just kind of frame this up a little bit for us.
Thank you, Board Member Letourneau. Yeah, just very quickly, obviously, we've been talking about budget since, I think, October publicly. A couple things we want to really recognize was, one, we've come back multiple times. We were trying to be as planning-based but iterative as possible, considering the kind of never-seeming changes, regional economy, national economy, and other things that are going on. Want to highlight that we've uplifted the revenue forecast twice based on ridership recovery. And we're very happy to see so many people back using this great regional system and fair revenue result of that. The second is, we've done a lot of cutting here in the last couple of years. We've identified over $500 million in savings and cost avoidance. With that said, I think it's, I think I certainly hear from the board and our stakeholders, that is our expectation to never stop trying to find more efficiencies and modernization. And I appreciate how hard the team has worked to find a few more things that we think could further reduce annual costs and therefore on the subsidy from our partners. So that has been reflected in the operating side, and on the capital side, we are clearly going to have a fiscal cliff in FY29 with some small adjustments on the capital program. We're trying to make that cliff a little less severe, But notwithstanding that, we still certainly have a cliff ahead that we're gonna, between whether it's DMV moves or the entire tri-state region here, try to come together and have a solution. So just really appreciate the amount of board engagement back and forth on a variety of things, and really letting the public know that we're still 100% focused on using these investments to deliver really good, safe, frequent, reliable service, because we believe there could still be more ridership growth and want to provide that very high level service that we have been providing. So thank you for the chance for some intro comments. I'll hand it over to you, Tunde and Tom.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. So without further ado, would you like to walk us through the updates?
Good morning, Chair Letourneau and members of the board. I'm Yetunde Olumide, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Joining me today is Tom Webster, Executive Vice President and Chief Planning and Performance Officer. Together, we'll walk through the recommended FY26 budget and the FY26 through 31 Capital Improvement Program. To begin, I'd like to provide a brief overview of the purpose of today's presentation. We are requesting the board's approval of the FY26 operating capital budgets and the FY26 through 31 Capital Improvement Program and associated documents. These financial plans lay the foundation for Metro's continued growth by supporting ridership, modernization, infrastructure, and delivering safe, reliable, and customer-focused service. Metro's FY26 recommended budget directly reflects the priorities outlined in Metro's strategic transformation plan. This plan continues to guide both our day-to-day decisions and long-term direction. The FY26 budget and capital program are aligned with this framework, ensuring we are addressing today's needs while strengthening Metro's ability to serve the region effectively in years ahead. Metro's recommended FY26 budget totals approximately $5 billion, including both operating and capital resources. Metro's FY26 recommended operating budget of almost $2.6 billion includes $2.5 billion in operating expenses, as well as $72 million in debt service and about $13 million in reimbursable projects. This budget is funded by about $564 million in passenger and non-passenger revenues and $1.9 billion in jurisdictional subsidies. In addition, Metro has approximately $28 million in prior year savings to apply to its FY26 budget. Metro's FY26 recommended capital budget of almost $2.4 billion includes about $2.1 billion for capital programs and projects, $245 million in debt service, and about $10 million for revenue losses from capital projects. This capital budget is funded with federal and state sources, as well as about $653 million in debt financing. The FY26 operating budget supports key investments that improve service, modernize our system, and enhance the customer experience. For Metro Rail, the budget includes targeted service enhancements such as increasing peak capacity to address ridership growth and extending 50% of Yellow Line trains to Greenbelt beginning in December. Weekend service hours will also be expanded with earlier openings and later closings to better meet customer demand. For bus, the budget also funds the launch of year one of the Better Bus network, which adds about 11 new routes to the frequent service network and increases midday and weekend service across the region. Metro's new contactless fare pay system, payment system that allows customers to pay with credit and debit cards and mobile devices with no added fees will also be implemented. These improvements are made possible in part by savings from automatic train operations and by reducing station staffing at low ridership locations during off-peak times. There will be no fare increases in FY26, and Metro Access service coverage will remain unchanged. Here we summarize the key changes from the proposed to the recommended FY26 operating budget. Total revenue increased by about $19 million from $545 million to about $564 million, reflecting the stronger ridership projections previously mentioned. Gross expenses have reduced by about $20 million, demonstrating Metro's continued focus on managing costs and operating more efficiently. The use of capital funding for operating preventive maintenance also decreased, thanks to increased revenue and ridership performance projections. Gross subsidy decreased by about $19 million, and with $28 million in prior year savings, the total net subsidy is now approximately $1.9 billion. These adjustments are the result of higher revenue, targeted efficiencies, and reduced capital reliance on jurisdictional subsidies. Tom will now discuss the capital improvement program.
Thank you. As the chair and general manager mentioned earlier, we've recently made another round of updates to the capital improvement program over the 6-year period in light of uncertainty or ongoing uncertainty, feedback from the board and some other factors. The effect of this is moving $200 million from FY26 and FY27, so the next 2 years, further into the 6-year period, so into FY28 and beyond. What that does is reduces the amount of projected debt issuance to be used to fund the program and essentially preserves that capacity until beyond FY27. There are a few programs that are impacted by this change. Digital customer information displays, bus fleet acquisition, fare collection modernization, our rail automation program development, the timing of Union Station First Street entrance improvements, and the expenditure schedule for our ongoing life cycle schedule maintenance of rail cars. Importantly, none of these changes will impact service, safety, the performance of the system. It is essentially timing of investments over the course of the 6-year period. Each of these programs with these changes remains or the total budget for the 6-year remains the same for all of those programs. This next slide reflects those updates. Funding sources from our federal partners and jurisdictions in FY26 have not changed. We have updated, as I mentioned, the expected debt proceeds to fund projects in FY26. And on the bottom of this slide, the total uses have for capital investment. So the 6 categories of capital investment have gone down by about $91 million from the previous version of the proposed capital program from February. The total 6-year CIP for investment in projects and programs remains the same, with, again, updates to the timing of investment and updates to the timing of dedicated funding debt issuances over that period. So still roughly a $13 billion 6-year program, including debt service for those dedicated funding bonds. Turn it back to Yetunde.
Thank you, Tom. So while the FY26 budget is balanced in this proposal, Metro continues to face several financial risks that could both impact daily operations and long-term planning. Major state and federal funding sources are not indexed to inflation, limiting our ability to keep pace with rising costs. Metro remains dependent on operating subsidies from local jurisdictions. These contributions are neither dedicated nor guaranteed, and continued reliance on capital funds to support operations reduces available resources for infrastructure investments, and creates long-term fiscal pressure. Fare evasion on Metrobus also remains, and the region's broader economic outlook adds further uncertainty. In addition, Metro does not have a formal financial reserve, limiting our ability to respond to unexpected events or emergencies. Finally, changes at the federal level, both in funding and regulatory policy, may introduce new risks in years ahead. Metro is well positioned to build on recent momentum as ridership continues to grow, but we must remain mindful of these ongoing financial challenges. In conclusion, staff recommends board acceptance of the public engagement report and approval of the FY26 budget and 6-year capital improvement program, the Title VI analysis, the FY26 debt management policy guidelines, and approval of the open payment system. Metro completed the public hearings on the budget in February and are currently in the budget adoption stage. Following the adoption of the board, by the board of the FY26 budget, staff will proceed with submission of grants applications and completing budget implementation by the beginning of the fiscal year FY26 on July 1. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Yetunde. And before we get into questions, I do just want to acknowledge we hit you with a lot of kind of last minute discussions, particularly on the capital budget side. I know that folks had to work over the weekend and such to try to make that possible. So I just wanted to really thank you for that. Thank the team for that. Please express our gratitude. And obviously, kind of unprecedented situation going on out there in the world. So we're all just doing our best to cope with it. But thank you for that. Questions first from, well, this is committee of the whole discussion. So I think really questions from anybody. Questions or comments? Director Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honestly, I mostly just wanted to reiterate what the chairman just said, because I feel really good about this budget. It demonstrates a commitment from WMATA to continue basically doing more with less, being as efficient as possible. And the fact that we have been able to really prioritize service, safety, and state of good repair. There's a lot swirling around in the world, as Chairman just said, but the focus here has continued to be on service, safety, and state of good repair. And the fact that you've been able to put together a budget that really reflects those priorities, I think is really a testament to the hard work that the full team is doing. There have certainly been ups and downs in the budget process, a lot of revisions, which makes sense as a lot of things are changing as we go forward. But this has actually, to my mind, been one of the least sort of crisis feeling budgets that we've done. I mean, we're talking about maintaining the really good service that we have and setting ourselves up for success in the coming fiscal year. So I feel really good about this. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that in just a couple of years, we are facing some dramatic cliffs in terms of our fiscal situation. And I really encourage the region to take this little breather that we have by having a good, solid budget right here to continue the work towards developing a long-term solution. So those are my comments. I really want to thank the team for putting this together.
Okay, Mr. Smedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too want to I'll add my name to what Sarah said, but also thank the general manager and the team for bringing forward what I think is a very responsible budget in light of everything that's going on around us. As the general manager knows, we've been in meetings with Virginia officials, and there's always been a talk about efficiency. And I think, you know, the stuff that's been brought forward in terms of efficiencies and cost reductions have been responsible. And to Sarah's point, you know, maintaining service and safety is really admirable. So Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Dr. Liu?
From my understanding, this budget is contingent essentially on us staying on track with ATO implementation because that has significant operational cost implications. Is that correct?
That's correct. Built into the FY26 budget is the efficiency gains and the cost savings that will come from.
Tom, can you just bring a mic a little closer? Thanks. Hard to hear you.
I'll say that again. So included in the 26 budget are the cost efficiency gains from returning to automatic train operation and design speeds. So there are reductions in cost associated with that and changes embedded in the budget. When we implemented the red line service changes earlier or late last year, this fiscal year, we immediately started to see cost savings as a result of the schedule improvements and the efficiency gains there. So we are confident that when we move to automatic train operation and design speed on the remaining lines, we will see those same cost efficiencies, and we've built that into the budget.
Building this into the budget needs to reflect a shared regional understanding of how we are managing and what the plan is. I know we're going to talk more about this in Safety and Operations Committee, but I just want to emphasize how important it is that we all on this board have conversations with all of our stakeholders about what it is that we are planning and how we are managing WMATA with available resources.
Mr. McAndrew?
Thank you, Chair, and I'll echo what you said and my colleague said. Thank you to the GM and staff here on another successful budget. It has not been always not without some bumps, but appreciate where we're at the end of the day. I got three things, one, I just want to acknowledge one of the biggest moves in terms of the $200 million that has been flowed out to 28 and after is bus acquisitions, primarily around the risk or delivery of zero-emission buses, correct? And so I just, that makes sense, right? It's prudent, especially if the manufacturers can't get us the buses on schedule to push that out. But I also want to acknowledge that in here, and I know we've talked about it a little bit as a board in public and in private, but just acknowledge for the public that we are ultimately suspending board resolutions that set goals and measures as part of this budget's passage today around movement towards a zero-emission bus future. And I think that is totally rational and makes sense, but I just wanted to make sure that we are raising that for awareness. At the end of the day, it's better to have a bus that is cost-effective and delivering folks from point A to point B on time and on schedule than necessarily what the fuel source is. So that's one item. And a weedy question that I've got, and I just want to maybe lift up or give an opportunity to pause here. But we have an approved indirect overhead rate from FTA. And I'd love to kind of pause and say, I believe we are reducing our indirect overhead or proposing to reduce our indirect overhead rate approval from FTA by roughly 3% or more. And that's largely driven by efficiencies, right? In terms of, and I'd love to say kudos on that and love to get a little bit more information on what exactly went into that, but if you can.
Thank you for your question, Mr. McAndrew. Each year we go through this process with revisiting our indirect rates. Staff works extensively as well to pull together all costs across the authority, ensuring that we're defining direct and indirect according to FTA guidelines. And we have had several audits through the years to ensure that we are adhering to those, and we've passed each one. That work is underway at this time, and we're happy to share details of the process with you in writing after this
Yeah.
presentation.
Appreciate that. I mean, I think, would it be safe to say, though, if we lower our indirect costs, we get more money to spend on capital or service, correct?
That's fair, yes.
That's what I like to hear. Last one is, the chair raised uncertainty, right? Are we going to have tariffs? Are we not going to have tariffs? I don't know. But can you give us a little bit of an update before we pass this budget on the certainty that we have in terms of our partnership with US DOT and FTA on our grants and our formula? Are those all flowing as they should be at this juncture?
I'll take that, team. At this time, there is no indication that there's any change in business with the federal government. And as soon as, if there is any, we'll immediately let the board know if there's any change. There's statutory programs under the IIJA, and all the funding that is related to those, we've been in communication, and everything is going as planned.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? I guess seeing none, I'll just close by again thanking the staff. I think this is an excellent budget that's responsive to our customers, responsive to the increased ridership that we're seeing, the demand that we're seeing, the crowding that we're seeing, with more service as well as efficiency that's been driven in. So with that, I will move to adopt the budget as presented, including acceptance of the public hearing staff report, Title VI analysis, and the debt management policy. Can I get a second? Seconded by Mr. McAndrew. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Unless there's any further comments, I'll ask the board corporate secretary to call the vote.
And just a reminder, this is a vote of all principal members today. So Chair Letourneau,
Aye.
Vice Chair Klein,
Aye.
Director Santos,
Aye.
Director McAndrew,
Aye.
Director Smedberg,
Aye.
Director Martin Proctor,
Aye.
Director Hadenlow,
Aye.
Director Drummer.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. So with no further business to come before the committee, we stand adjourned, and I will turn the floor over, I believe, to Ms. Martin Proctor to begin today's Safety and Operations Committee meeting.
Thank you, Director Letourneau. And good morning and welcome, everybody, to the meeting of the Board's Safety and Operations Committee. I am Camila Martin Proctor, Vice Chair of the Safety and Operations Committee. I will be leading today's meeting with Colonel Drummer, yay technology. And our first order of business is to approve the agenda. We have today's agenda in front of us for approval. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Next order of business is approval of minutes. We have the minutes of our March 27th meeting. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Okay. Hearing none, we consider the minutes approved as presented. Thank you all for your time. As we move forward, we have one update on today's agenda, an update on Metro's automatic train operations, or ATO, which is currently in use on the Red Line and planned to be implemented on other Metro rail lines in the near term. Today's update will review lessons learned from Metro's experience with ATO on the Red Line, along with benchmarking Metro's performance against peer agencies. I will now turn the floor over to Mr. Andy Off and Ms. Teresa Impastato to provide today's update. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Martin Proctor. The purpose of our update today is to provide the board an update on the status of our return to automatic train operations. We'll briefly review the benefits of ATO as well as our performance with some detailed information relative to Judiciary Square performance, lessons learned from the Red Line launch to date, and industry benchmarking. I'll also review the role ATO plays in enhancing safety of our operations and roadway worker protection in addition to next steps. We'll review this in greater detail in the presentation, but with regard to the benefits of automatic train operations from a safety perspective, ATO mitigates the very significant hazard of a red signal overrun by arresting the movement of a train prior to breaching the line of where that signal is located. Metro has observed 0 red signal overruns on the red line since launching an ATO on December 15th. Additionally, there have been 3 red signal overruns on lines running in manual mode during that same time period. We'll talk a little bit more about the risks associated with red signal overruns when running in manual later in this presentation. I'd like to pass it over to my colleague, Mr. Off, to talk about some efficiency and reliability benefits.
No, thank you, Teresa. Some things that we've talked about in the past, some of the efficiencies that this technology affords and as it relates to the budget that we just discussed. So as an example, on the Red Line, there's a certain number of peak trains we need, to run the service, per, as example today, I believe it's about 24. So what we're able to do is, because we can reduce the end-to-end runtime, as is noted under reliability, by 4 minutes, and when we're running a 5-minute headway, that drives down the number of total trains we need to deliver the same service, right? So that, because we need less resources, it results in, pretty significant savings. In this case, for the FY26 budget, about $7 million. So then we're able to take that savings and turn around and invest that in some pretty awesome customer improvements on other parts of the system. So not only do we have a safer technology, we have, more efficient technology that allows us to put that savings back into better customer service on other parts of the system. Next slide. So ATO performance on the Red Line. We started ATO on the Red Line on the 15th of December, so coming up on about 4 months of service here. Talking about customer on-time performance, so in the month of March, we've had a 2% increase in customer on-time performance. And although that number may not seem, meaningful on its face, when you understand what that really means, so that equates to 60,000 more customers who had on-time journeys on the Red Line in the month of March alone. In terms of train stops, what's been discussed is these, train station overruns. So through April 5th, almost 675,000 station stops since we started on the 15th of December. 99.97% of those, have been proper stops. As the data on the right-hand chart shows, during the month, the first 30-day period, 84 overruns running in automatic train operations on the Red Line. And then about 60 days later, we cut that in half due to some of the efforts that we're going to talk about here in the near future. On the next slide. And then March 16th to April 5th, we're driving that number even further. So although we'll talk about here, certainly not a safety issue, it certainly is an inconvenience, for our customers. So therefore, it's very important to us. So it's something we track and are continually working to drive down. Next slide, please. So if we talk about Judiciary Square, this is a unique circumstance that we wanted to have a discussion with the board and the greater public about. So if you think about the system there, so between Gallery Place and Judiciary Square, or train headed eastbound, it's the shortest distance we have between any 2 platforms in the system. It's about 1,300 feet or so. So as a train is leaving Gallery Place, headed towards Judiciary Square, for reasons we're continuing to investigate, there is an antenna on the front of the train that's continuously looking for a response to tell it how far it is from the platform. It is receiving an invalid response and telling it that the platform is further ahead than it really is. So then what happens is, in certain cases, the train does overrun there. So you can see from March 16th to April 5th, we did have 2 overruns. So if you think about this in terms, relative, 12 trains an hour, we're running 5-minute headways. So we're making almost 230 stops or so there, just on that eastbound platform on any given day at Judiciary Square. So, it is not, certainly it's something we're concerned about and something we're going to continue to improve and get better on, but not overwhelmingly, something that happens, every train or it's something that is, very intermittent, with certain trains. And I think shown by the data here, it's something that we're continuing to investigate. As a matter of fact, this week, we are actively investigating. We have all the right vendors, engineering teams on site collecting all the data we need to further, understand. Important point here is I referenced an antenna on the front of the train that is looking for these marker coils that tell the train how far it is. Totally separate and distinct system from what we refer to as the automatic train protection system that tells the train if there is occupancy ahead or not. Two totally different systems. We have not seen any evidence, nor do we think there will be any evidence that there's any interference with that system. All two totally different things, and we're very focused on investigating the system that's telling the train how far it is from the platform. Next slide. So how have we been able to drive down some of these overruns? Huge team effort. I think most of us recall the first day that we went live with automatic train operations, December 15th. Certainly saw a number of overruns that none of us deemed acceptable. So we quickly rallied the team to better understand why that was happening and what we can do to drive those down, as it is a reliability issue and inconvenience for our customers. So one of the things that there is a button on the train. So if you're operating in ATO and you want to stop your train for whatever reason, there is an ATO stop button, and you hit that and the train goes into a braking mode and it stops. So what was happening is that is not used as part of the station stopping method for a platform, right? That's all done through this antenna system that I previously discussed. So as the train was coming in, it gets what's called a precision station stopping command. And some of our operators, as they're getting familiar, with this new system, we're hitting the ATO stop button, and that causes the train to go into a different braking profile than it is in to make a proper stop. So then it was either stopping short or stopping long, right? So we had to go through a process of just making sure everybody understood what the ATO stop button is for and what it does relative to making a proper stop. We also formalized our cross-functional team, our car engineering team, signals team, operations team, Teresa's team. Have obviously been working very hard on this for years, but we did formalize a overrun working group to further investigate. So we did that shortly after the new year. Returning to normal operations guidance, what that is all about is obviously we're being very deliberate and thoughtful about when we are operating in automatic train operations and when we come out of automatic train operations. It was a pretty tough winter for us relative to, the past few years, and there were a lot of events that necessitated us to come out of automatic train operations. So we established, a new framework around how do we make decisions about returning to automatic train operations. So that's very, meaningful in mitigating, some of these overrun events that may be caused by environmental conditions. This SOP 40 modification, again, has more to do about the proper usage of the ATO stop button and what that does. Next, there's a cancel station stop button that is on the console, similar to the ATO stop button. So if a train is, moving along and the thinking is you want to skip a stop, this is a button you would activate. It's not anything that is, useful nor needed, in today's operating environment. So it's something that we're disabling from the console, from software perspective, to ensure that doesn't interfere with the operator's ability to properly stop the train at the platform. And then, as I mentioned, we are actively investigating Judiciary Square, as we speak, to better understand the behavior of the train in picking up this marker coil that simply is not there. Next slide. Industry benchmarking, we have done a lot of research, across the industry. We've gotten some good details from two of our peer agencies. I think as we've mentioned, everybody generally tracks this because it is an inconvenience to customers. but it's not tracked, as a safety measure, relative to all the things that Teresa's team and the organization is focused on in terms of more severe safety events that could happen, as an example, if you run a red signal. So as you can see, in terms of the reliability of stops, we are clearly in line, if not better. I think the month of March alone, 99.99% reliability of proper station stops in the month of March. And I think as the slides showed previously, we have been driving down the number of overruns that we've seen on the red line. We think we'll continue to get better at that. And relative to, our peers, we believe we're, as we're leading in other safety metrics, in a reliability metric, we're also, on par or if not better for station stopping. Next slide.
Madam Chair, if I could, Mr. Opp, before we leave this slide, just a point of information. When you say an agency does not track this as a safety event, is there any requirement by any federal level agency or anything that requires any kind of tracking as it relates to a safety event?
Yeah, sir, this may be a good opportunity to transition to Teresa's next slide where she's going to cover that very point. But so excellent lead in. Thank you.
Currently, the Federal Transit Administration does not consider a station overrun a reportable event. So when station overruns occur, transit agencies are not required to make a report to the National Transit Database that a station overrun occurred, as we are required to make a report to NTD in the event that we have a collision, a derailment, a fire, an evacuation for life safety reasons, et cetera. Station overrun reporting is also not included in the FTA mandated agency safety plan safety performance monitoring. Metro is required under the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission's program standard to report to the WMSC, our state safety oversight agency, every station overrun via email notification. Many of our peer agencies, as Mr. Oft noted, do not track overruns as safety events. They track overruns as reliability and customer service related events. I also wanted to take the opportunity to brief the board relative to roadway worker protection. I know the board has received several presentations with regard to roadway worker protection, and I did want to highlight that existing and newly issued regulations that pertain to roadway worker protection, existing regulations under the Federal Railroad Administration and newly issued regulations under the Federal Transit Administration do not identify any requirements that are related to operating mode nor station overruns. A fundamental premise of roadway worker protection is the individual responsibility that every employee who must access the tracks in the execution of their duties ensure that they are properly protected against the movement of trains. Those protections are accomplished via a series of administrative protocols that are scaled to the complexity of the work that's being performed and the hazards present both in the location and with the work being performed. Those actions, the primary protection methods, are entirely independent of the train's operation in any mode. Additionally, Metro requires that if the tracks are to be obstructed for maintenance with equipment, or if employees are going to be working in areas that have a configuration that would place them at an elevated level of risk, that they use a higher level of protection. The higher levels of protection under roadway worker protection protocols engage the use of the Metro signal system, and they essentially set terminal entry and exit points for the areas obstructed for maintenance. They do so utilizing stop signals. So in the event that tracks are obstructed for maintenance with equipment, or employees are occupying areas where there's limited visibility or otherwise an elevated level of risk, they must use that higher level of protection. A train operating an ATO will be stopped before entering any areas that have exclusive use or foul time protection. So operation in ATO also has an ancillary benefit of enhancing the level of protection of roadway workers when tracks are obstructed for maintenance. When roadway workers are walking along the tracks, they are permitted to utilize the base level of roadway worker protection, which is train approach warning. Train approach warning engages the use of a watchman lookout who walks in advance of the crew and provides an audible and visual warning of the approach of a train. Metro's rules require that all walking on tracks take place against the flow of traffic, facing any oncoming train. Our rules also require that the placement of a watchman be a sufficient distance to enable them to provide that warning before the train enters the area where employees are walking. When employees receive that warning, they're required to move from the tracks into a place of safety and observe the train as it passes by them. Watchman placement is required to be placed at the maximum possible speed for the area. None of those protections are linked to the presence of a station, nor the mode of operation for the train. Since the implementation of our roadway worker protection program in 2010, Metro has significantly driven down the likelihood of any sort of catastrophic scenario. And we continue to monitor and review our roadway worker protection program, making several improvements based upon lessons learned. With regard to our schedule thus far and the next steps in our ATO program, I would like to briefly review some of the completed steps that we've had so far. In November of 2024, Metro sent a temporary use notice to the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. By way of review, a temporary use notice is the penultimate step in Metro's safety certification process. A temporary use notice certifies that a system or asset is safe for use in passenger service with various restrictions. Some of those restrictions are time-bounded to ensure a period of performance. The temporary use notice, which was submitted on November the 1st, was supported by extensive analytics and documented test plans of tests that were conducted and witnessed by frontline WMSC staff throughout 2024. Those tests had pass-fail criteria in two categories. The first category was safety key performance. The key performance requirements for acceptance and passing of the system demonstration testing was 100% achievement of safety performance. Put otherwise, Metro had zero tolerance for safety failures during our testing. We did not observe any failures of the critical safety systems like a stop signal overrun during our testing. The second criteria that Metro reviewed during our testing, which the WMSC frontline staff attended to, were reliability criteria. Reliability criteria are criteria that could impact the timeliness or the customer experience. Reliability criteria, passing rates for the test were established at 98%. The test results indicated successful pass, and they were sent in with a temporary use notice. The WMSC's program standard requires that they concur on the temporary use notice issuance. We received that concurrence and initiated service on the Red Line in December of 2024. To date, we are continuing to monitor our performance relative to the key performance indicators in the initial system testing. 100% for safety KPIs and 98% for our reliability KPIs. Performance to date on the Red Line has met the 100% and exceeded the 98% for reliability rates. Metro has continued to perform that system demonstration testing on the green, yellow, blue, orange, and silver lines outside of the revenue service window. Metro passed all of the test parameters for the green line and sent a temporary use notice to the WMSC in mid-March. We've also completed the testing for the yellow line and sent the supporting documentation and analytics to the WMSC at the end of the month last month. Metro was planning to initiate the start of the green line operations on April the 13th. We received notice that the WMSC has declined to concur with Metro's temporary use notice to start up and initiate ATO service on the green line. We're continuing to work collaboratively with the WMSC to identify and resolve their concerns. We are currently looking to send the temporary use notice for the blue, orange, and silver line to the WMSC no later than May the 1st. And we are currently planning to initiate ATO service on the yellow line as planned and delayed service on the green line on May the 4th to go live with ATO. Followed thereafter by initiation on the blue, orange, and silver lines in June of 2025. Lastly, with regard to our preparedness to return on the green line, as I stated, we've completed all test and observation runs. Over 1,300 station stops were evaluated during testing and observation runs on the green line. 98% of our green line rail vehicle operators have received training qualification for operations in ATO. The 4 remaining individuals that comprise the 2% are currently out on long-term leave and will receive that training before we go live. We did submit the temporary use notice, and once we've received concurrence on the temporary use notice, Metro will have a 3-day mobilization cycle required in order to go live with ATO on the green line. As I stated in the prior slide, we're planning to consolidate going live with green and yellow at the same time to minimize any logistical complexities associated with serializing going live in such a close time frame. This concludes our presentation, and Mr. Off and I are happy to address any questions that the board may have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Impastato and Mr. Off. Are there any questions from the committee at this time? Yes, Dr. Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I want to just kind of step back from this presentation for a second and understand bigger picture exactly what a platform overrun is. I personally have never been on a train while one of these is happening, and so I'm still just trying to understand what we're talking about. When I'm on the train and it's going like 65 miles an hour and I'm flying through the tunnel and we're not at the station yet, like from the customer's perspective, what happens next that leads to a platform overrun?
No, thank you, Dr. Lowe. I'll certainly do my best to replicate. We'll use Judiciary Square, as an example. So if I'm a customer, getting on Gallery Place, headed eastbound towards Judiciary Square, and my intent is to disembark the train at Judiciary Square, the train would be, moving in that direction, and for maybe the reason we discussed earlier, this anomaly we're researching now, the train does not stop at what we refer to as the 8-car marker, the end of the platform. Let's say it goes 50 feet past. So there are 3 doors on each rail car. So at this point, there would be 2 doors of that first lead car that are not on the platform. So at this point, by policy, the rail vehicle operator would contact the control center, inform the rail traffic controller that they had overrun the end of the platform. They would be instructed to make announcements to their customers that the station will not be serviced and that they are continuing to the next station, Union Station. And then at that point, that is where the customer inconvenience and reliability issue really manifests itself, because obviously at that point, the customer now would have to get off at Union Station, board a westbound train back to Judiciary Square in order to complete their journey. So that is how we handle it today and what it would look like from a customer's experience, I believe.
Okay. So the train's going super fast when it's in the tunnel. Is it like overrunning because it's like barreling into the station at 65 miles per hour and not stopping when it's supposed to stop? Like, that's what I'm trying to understand. Like, what is this? What is it? Why isn't the train stopping at the station? Is it slowing down?
No, there are different ways that would cause the station to not be properly stopped at, right? So one example, we talked about the working group we have to make decisions very thoughtfully about, we come out of automatic train operations, let's say due to a ice condition. Those types of things can lead to improper adhesion between the rail car wheel and the rail, which can cause the train to go further past the end of the station than intended, right? That can be one reason.
Okay, so it's slipping a little bit.
Well, it can be in cases. So just as an example, we mentioned the 675,000 station stops that we've made, since the 15th of December in the ATO on the Red Line. Through the ATO system driving the train, every one of those stops, the train has been approaching the station at the same speed each time, right? It's not like one station overrun, you're going 65 and, the other one you're going 40. The train is listening, to its internal computer and it's reading based upon the safety system on the train, how fast it can go. So trains are always going, the same speed in ATO. That's one of the reasons why it's such a reliable service, because it is so consistent. So speed is not, I would say, a factor in why it overruns. Because it's, there can be environmental conditions. There are this wayside communication system that we, talked about. Sometimes, like at Judiciary Square, there are, very rare anomalies that cause the train to, see a marker of when to stop. But there's not a marker there, and hence it doesn't stop at the right location on 0.01% of the time in our experience to date on the Red Line.
Okay, so the train's supposed to stop at the station. It's slowing down. It's like it's trying to make it happen, but sometimes it essentially slips past the station a small amount that is less than the total amount of the train. And then what Metro does is drive to the next station, and anyone who wanted to get off there is annoying. They have to then take the train back the other way.
Correct. I do want to, there are, I use the example of one car with two doors. I mean, there are cases, where we have run more than that, through the station. I guess just as Teresa noted, that the station is not a place we're stopping for a safety stop or because there is anything ahead. We're stopping there because it's the designated place where we need to open doors and let our customers off. So at times, we can be 4 cars past. We have had, that does happen due to some of the same anomalies we talked about, either environmental, human, or, systemic or systems miscommunications between the train and the wayside technology.
Okay, I mean, like, I completely understand that sometimes trains stop in weird places, right? Like, if the operator saw something, they should stop the train, right? Like, I get that happens. What are the risks when the train overruns the platform? What are people afraid might happen?
So from a safety perspective, there's no inherent risk with a train that comes to a stop, not at a platform. The risk would be created should an individual open the doors to the train. So if a train overruns a station in automatic, auto doors will not open the doors. The operator will need to manually open the doors. The risk associated with a station overrun is only realized if the operator were to open the doors off platform, in which customers or occupants of the train would then be stepping out and there wouldn't be a platform there for them. Metro mitigates that risk by not opening the doors and requiring the train to proceed to the next station.
So automatic door operation does not get triggered when the train stops just anywhere.
Correct.
It has to be stopped at the platform.
Correct. The way that system is configured, there's a front and a rear, and both of those sensors have to be active in order for the doors to open. So if you overshoot or you undershoot and your train is not properly berthed, one of those two sensors won't be active and the doors will not open.
Okay. I have to be honest, I'm struggling to see what the risks are with I mean, it sounds really annoying from a rider's perspective to have to go to the next station and then ride back, but that is not the same as like two trains colliding with each other. I can see from the slides that you presented that running in manual it seems like it's producing fewer platform overruns. And then you're juxtaposing that with these data that show that running in manual is producing more signal overruns. Where are the signals? Okay, so they're not at the platforms? Like, which of these kinds of overruns is more dangerous?
So the risk of a signal overrun is exponentially more serious than the risk associated with a station overrun. The purpose of a signal in the system is to prevent occupancy of multiple trains in the same area. A stop signal indicates to the train operator that the tracks ahead are not fit for it to occupy for several reasons. It could be that there's another train ahead of it. It could be that there's a track condition with a broken rail. It could be that movement is not lined for them. There could be work equipment on the other side of it. If a train passes a stop signal, overruns a stop signal, the potential consequences are collisions, derailments, and striking work equipment as well. So by means of safety risk estimates, stop signal overruns are significantly, exponentially more serious than station overruns. The way the ATO system works, as Mr. Roth mentioned, there are two distinct systems that work together to operate a train in ATO. The movement of the train and compliance with occupancy-based requirements of the signaling system is separate from precision station stopping and ensures a positive stop. So the risk of a stop signal overrun when operating an ATO is near zero. The risk of a station overrun working on a separate, not fail-safe designed system for precision station stopping is slightly higher. Again, as I stated, our KPIs are zero tolerance for station overruns in ATO, or I'm sorry, zero tolerance for stop signal overruns in ATO. Should we have one, we would suspend use of the ATO system for a robust investigation. With regard to station overruns in ATO, we have a 98% KPI.
Okay, I want to come back to that. I mean, or let's get into that right now. You mentioned this distinction between like, we need to be 100% on safety, but our standard is 98% on reliability. So that's basically saying that stopping at exactly the right place at the platform, that is, you're classifying that as it's a reliability issue.
Yes.
And that's consistent with like, from the customer's perspective, yeah, it's annoying to miss your stop and to have to go back. But that's annoying is different from in physical danger.
Correct.
Okay. When the WMSC did not concur with this temporary use notice, where were we? I mean, there have been a bunch of overruns. Has it been more than 2% of stops at any point?
With regard to stop signal overruns, we've had 0 in ATO.
I mean, sorry, station
Okay.
overruns. Like, were there more than 2%?
So measured against each month, no, we've exceeded the 98% KPI for reliability.
Okay, so at all times, we've been over that.
Well, it at all times, it depends on the denominator. If all times is a time period of one stop and you miss the one stop.
Yeah,
it's
okay,
not-
and then it's 100%.
But
yeah.
on a 30-day cycle,
Okay. Yeah,
on the 30-day cycle,
Okay.
which is our denominator, we've always been above the 98%.
Okay. So if being above 98% is not enough, what is enough?
Metro believes 98% is sufficient, and Metro also believed that the WMSC shared that perspective because they concurred with the temporary use notice supported by the testing that had a pass requirement at 98% reliability, which was achieved.
Okay. And we know it can't be 100 because sometimes these overruns happen in manual too.
Correct.
Okay. I'm still trying to understand how we have arrived at this situation. When did WMATA identify, in these slides you're saying the cause of, at least at Judiciary Square, is this false marker coil detection. I read the transcript of the last WMSC meeting, and they said that WMATA told them they thought the cause was electromagnetic interference. Are those two the same thing?
So the way we've looked at it is, as the rail car was proceeding from Gallery Place to Judiciary Square, the train was seeing a indication that it should stop ahead when there was not a marker coil there that should be telling the train to stop. So that is the result of what the current theory is that is caused by perhaps this electromagnetic interference. I don't think any, if you talk to our engineering team, I don't think anybody would tell you that that is proven, beyond a reasonable doubt. There are other things that can make that happen, but the working theory at this point is that perhaps an electromagnetic interference is causing the rail car to see a stopping indication that is not there.
Okay. And you guys are testing a hardware solution to this?
We do not. We are testing, what we're currently testing is how the train is behaving, what it is seeing where. We believe at this point that it is not a hardware thing. We think at most it's a software thing to get the car to behave differently when it's seeing this false indication at this location. So we don't believe it's a hardware thing. Rather, at most, a software thing that will have to reprogram the rail car to behave differently.
Okay. How long does that take to test out?
So we believe, we'll be wrapping up the testing here in the next few days, take a good few weeks to do the analysis. And then, we're not sure on how long it will take. We have to be very thoughtful when we're changing software on these cars, and we have processes, around that to, mitigate any unintended consequences. So we can't sign up, at this point for a firm timeline, but we certainly are working on it, all hands on deck to get, through this as quickly as we can.
Okay. Last question. Could we go back one slide? So I get that, you're still working on this railcar reprogramming idea, but also when I look at this slide, I am seeing a drastic reduction in the number of station overruns that are happening kind of like every time period. It looks like we're down 85% from where we started. So how did we get all that improvement? Was that just like talking to the operators about what the button does?
So as part of the cross-functional group, we performed a causal analysis of factors that influence the likelihood of each station overrun. We also conducted a full and thorough investigation speaking to the individuals that were involved in station overruns. What we found initially was that the vast majority of the station overruns are attributable to human error. Employees were depressing the cancel station stop button, or they were depressing the ATO stop button. And when they did that, hitting cancel station stop essentially served its purpose. The train did not stop at the station. Hitting ATO stop, as Mr. Off noted, introduces a different braking profile. I do want to be clear that the ATO stop button is not an emergency stop. In the event that an operator witnesses something ahead of them on the tracks, they are to utilize what's referred to as the mushroom button, the emergency stop button. And that will enact the most aggressive braking profile that the train is capable of giving. ATO stop has a different purpose. ATO stop is meant to stop the movement of your train slowly and safely for everyone on board to enable you to switch into manual and to take other actions. You could utilize ATO stop, for example, if you needed to change directions because there was an issue up ahead and we needed to reroute service. When employees were depressing ATO stop in the station, they were overriding the system's braking and using a less aggressive braking rate than what was pre-programmed to stop at the 8-car marker. That was resulting in several station overruns. So what we did was revise our training, revise our exercises in the simulator, and re-instruct all of our operators on the purpose of the ATO stop button and the purpose of the ATO cancel station stop. And we've noted that the human error related issues have substantially dropped in frequency.
Okay. I think my key takeaway here is that it is important that we get clarity on the reliability KPI. I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding, and we got to get that sorted out.
Thank you, Director Lowe. Director Spenberg, I believe you have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Off, you mentioned these antennas at the front of the cars. Has all the equipment been reviewed and sort of looked at? It's capable of doing what it is, obviously. We're seeing the numbers, but
Yep.
yeah.
Yes, sir. No, and again, just as, and not to get to, but there's 20, the rail car runs from Shady Grove to Glenmont. There's 27 stations, right? 2 platforms, 54 stops. So that one stop on one side of the platform of Judiciary Square, represents, 2% of all stops the train is making on the Red Line in total. And that same rail car is stopping properly at the other 53 or the other 98% of the stops it needs to make. So that we've clearly pinpointed this, as a specific issue between, wayside and train communication between Gallery Place and Judiciary Square, we believe.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Ambassador, when you say the WMSC attends to or intended to, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that they're working with you every step of the way? Are they concurring at various points along the way, or is it at the end? I mean, what does that mean?
So throughout the process of Metro's return to automation, auto doors, ATO, all of our efforts, we've been in ongoing and constant communication with the WMSC. We have given them opportunity to review and provide feedback of draft documents, concepts of operations, drafts, draft test plans. Frontline staff from the WMSC have always been alerted to and have in fact attended many test and observation runs. We've reviewed any data that's been collected, any analysis that Metro performs. We meet very frequently. We have standing meetings with WMSC's technical experts on our efforts. And we also submit formally the temporary use notice. The materials contained in the temporary use notice were not unique to the temporary use notice. All of those had been reviewed with the WMSC prior to assembly of the package and submittal to them for their full review and concurrence.
Concurrence,
Yes.
key word there. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Director Spedberg. I believe Chair Santos, you have a question?
I want to go back to what my colleague, Dr. Lowe, asked earlier, just to underscore a point, which is from a customer perspective, do the overruns create a risk to the customer experience? Significant risk? Safety
No.
risk? Thank you. From a worker perspective, does an overrun create a significant safety risk?
No.
Thank you. From the perspective of how many thousands of stops have occurred since the red line, since ATO went into operation on the red line, my understanding is that obviously it's improved significantly. How many, just to give a sense, because we've been focusing on the worst case scenarios as opposed to the many 99% or whatever, how many stops are we talking about or how many instances has this occurred, the overrun, roughly?
So in total, ma'am, between the 15th of December to today, I believe the total is about 220 in automatic on the red line since we started on 15 December.
Out of just rough order of
Out
magnitude?
of the 674,000 stops we've made since the 15th.
Exactly. So there's minimal significant safety risk to customers, minimal additional risk to workers, very few instances. And then also, just to make sure we're clear, based on actually this slide, it sounds like, I know the team has done research, not just with other peer agencies, but the ones listed, but with others. Typical industry practice wouldn't characterize this type of overrun as a safety event, correct?
That's correct.
So in other words, WMATA is absolutely squarely within good practice amongst our peer transit industries.
That's correct.
And then last question, to be clear, I know that the team has worked really hard to estimate potential cost savings from shifting to automatic train operation, and the board has been supportive of the continuing expansion of this from the red line to the green line, et cetera. If this doesn't move forward on the green and the yellow line, what approximate potential cost savings will we not achieve? I don't know if this is a better question for the GM or the CFO.
It was $7 million in that last presentation.
$7 million is what's estimated in FY26.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Santos. Yes, Chair Klein? I mean,
I got promoted.
Director Klein? Yes.
Thank you. This is a really helpful presentation, and I really appreciate the questions that my colleagues have asked because they've enabled me to understand this in a way that I don't think I had previously. But I want to ask just a couple more clarifying questions. The part of automatic train control that controls the station platform location of where the train stops is a separate part than the one that controls how far trains are from each other, right?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
So just focusing on the one that controls when, where on the platform the train comes to a stop, does that system affect any other safety critical aspects of train movement? And the reason I'm asking is, like, if we're having an issue with where the train ends on the platform, could there be some other thing that would be affected by that?
No, they are separate and, separated, systems that use different pickup antennas, different frequencies, and different parts of the onboard computer on the rail car. So we don't see any scenario where those two would influence one another.
So it sounds like this is simply for performance and reliability an issue, not for safety. The issue with the platform overruns. I would like to dig into the roadway worker protection just a little more. Envision a team working on the tracks 50 feet beyond a station. if there's equipment with them, there will be a stop signal in place. So a train in ATO won't proceed. But
That's
a
correct.
train in manual should also not proceed, but on very rare occasions, there is human error or whatnot that could allow that. So it's actually safer for roadway workers for the trains to be in ATO.
Correct.
Okay.
When the tracks are obstructed for maintenance, the ATO system will arrest the movement of the train before it enters into the established work zone. In manual, trains can enter stop and proceed mode and proceed past the stop signal. You can have stop signal overruns in manual. In ATO, we do not accept them and would have to suspend the system. We've had none to date.
And the part of the ATO system that responds to stop signals, is that a different part of it than
Yes.
what's responding to where it should be on the platform?
Correct.
Okay, so, and every indication from the 0 stop signal overruns is that that's working.
Correct.
100%. Okay. For track workers who don't have equipment, but they're moving along the tracks, say they happen to be 50 feet beyond a station, then they have a watch person there. Is that watch person, signal person, just assuming the train is going to stop and so it doesn't do anything if the train's coming to the platform, or are those guys still getting out of the way when the train comes into the station,
No.
even if they're 50 feet beyond?
They are required to sound a warning upon viewing a train. So what could actually happen, the train could be stationary and they could come upon it, see it, sound a warning, folks clear, and that train doesn't move.
Right.
They would wait until that train started moving and moved past them.
So the protocols are in place that are going to protect the roadway workers that are either through the stop signal or through the protocols that they're trained to follow. Okay, so that is helpful to me in understanding that it does not appear that there is a safety risk for roadway workers from the platform overrun issue.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, like Dr. Lowe, I'm kind of struggling to understand why the WMSC is no longer concurring in something they previously concurred in, which seems to have a very reasonable standard of 100% on safety KPIs and 98% on reliability KPIs, which we are meeting on the red line. So to prevent ATO from going into effect on the green line seems like a less safe action to me. One question, you mentioned that these are temporary use notices. Temporary suggests that there's a later process to make it permanent. What happens after the temporary period ends?
Yes. So the final step in Metro safety certification process is what's called a certificate of conformance. And the period for a temporary use is scalable and adjustable depending upon the specific asset and the conditions under the temporary use. We issue temporary use notices for constructed assets when there's still some punch list items, those sorts of things. Upon completion of a period of performance and meeting all criteria to close out the final certification, Metro prepares a certificate of compliance that essentially releases any restrictions that were in the temporary use notice and notes that it is now a fully mature asset that is placed in our asset management program.
Okay, I mean, it seems we're headed in that direction. The performance of this system on the red line has been what it has met the performance indicators that suggest that it is working. It makes sense to try to reduce customer inconvenience as much as possible, obviously. That's one of the high priorities, but the safety-related aspects are working as intended. So I think I'm getting my head around this now, and I really appreciate this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Klein. Colonel Drummer, I believe you have a question or a comment?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I will say that my fellow board members have superbly captured the essence of anything that I intended to share. And I just want to say thank you to the team for your thoroughness and diligence in bringing this to light and educating us today. And I have no further comments beyond that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Are there any further comments or questions from the board at this point? I would like to make one last comment as well, echoing Colonel Drummer's thankfulness for this presentation. It was very much in depth. It gave us a lot of amazing information to look at, and I know this was a yeoman's lift, and I thank you and your team for moving us forward with regards to the ATO review update and overall education of us all and the general public. Prior to adjournment, I did want to make one small personal point of clarification statement for myself. Today is April 10th, and it's my mom's birthday. So I just wanted to take this opportunity, because I have the microphone and I have the dais to do so, to wish my mom happy birthday. We love you very, very much, and I'm looking forward to ice cream and cake for dinner tonight. Okay. Lucky me. Sharing all the calories. But any other questions or comments from the board at this time? Oh, thank you, Sarah. For the good of the order, going once, going twice. Okay. With no other items to come before the committee today, we stand in adjournment. We are going to head right into special board meetings, so I will turn the floor over to Chair Santos.
Thank you, Director. Good morning. I think it's 11:59. It's still technically morning. I'm Valerie Santos, Chair of the WMATA Board. Thank you for being here at today's special board meeting. First, we'll start with the approval of the agenda. I would like to consider the agenda approved as presented with one addition, which is that our general manager will provide us with a brief update on Better Bus implementation and a couple of other Metro-related updates, with a deeper dive planned at the April 24th Safety and Operations Committee meeting. Are there any objections to the agenda with this one addition? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Thank you. I will now recognize Finance and Capital Committee Chair Matt Letourneau for the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The following item was referred to the board at this morning's Finance and Capital Committee meeting. A, acceptance of public hearing staff report, Title VI analysis and debt management policy, and approval of the FY26 operating and capital budgets and FY26-31 capital improvement program. Staff sought approval of Metro's 2026 operating and capital budgets and FY26-31 CIP, along with acceptance of the associated public hearing staff report, Title VI analysis, and debt management policy. This year's operating budget provides for additional rail service to address peak crowding and expand weekend service, as well as to support implementation of year one of the Better Bus Network and the TAP Ride Go payment system that I know we're all looking forward to. This action also moves $200 million in capital funding from FY26 and 27 to FY28 and subsequent years. Madam Chair, I move approval.
Thank you. Can I get it out? Thank you, Matt. Is there a second? Director Lowe, she's hungry. Seconded by Director Lowe. Any discussion? I will now ask our board corporate secretary to administer the vote.
Chair Santos.
Aye.
Vice Chair Smedberg.
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew.
Aye.
Wow, a lot of aye votes.
Ms. Klein.
Aye.
Director Lowe.
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau.
Aye.
Mr. Drummer.
Aye.
Martin Proctor. Ms. Proctor.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is an amendment to the general manager's employment agreement. I would like to move approval of the following. For the amendment of our general manager CEO's employment agreement to extend the term of the agreement for 2 years through 2029, including performance indicators, measures and objectives, increase the annual bonus based on performance, and add retention payments to incentivize our general manager to remain with Metro and continue implementation of the strategic transformation plan. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Letourneau. Thank you for your second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am pleased to second this agreement. So my favorite sports team is the Red Sox, and a few of you in the room. Mr. Dwyer's not here, but at the beginning of the season, we have a couple of really special young players that came up that look like they're going to be great, and the team took the step of extending their contracts before they had to ensure that they were going to be part of the team for a long time. And so I think that's what we're doing here. We have an all-star general manager, and we've been performing at a very high level for several years since he's been here. And so it makes sense for us to ensure that he's going to be with us long-term and give the region certainty. So I'm glad that we come to an agreement and that we are moving forward with this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other comments? I will now ask our Board Corporate Secretary to administer the vote.
Chair Santos,
Aye.
Vice Chair Smedberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew,
Aye.
Ms. Klein,
Aye.
Dr. Lowe,
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau,
Aye.
Mr. Drummer,
Aye.
Ms. Martin Proctor.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. And now I'll turn over the floor to our General Manager for a brief update.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Congratulations.
And thank you, Board. I guess I'll start at just, I appreciate the Board's confidence in my leadership and their recognition of my commitment to drive, I think as Board Member Letourneau said, continuous improvement across the Metro system. Leading this amazing team of professionals and working with all the leaders throughout this region has certainly been an honor and a privilege, and I take it very seriously. It's a highlight of my career, and I really look forward to continuing this effort with all the board members, our fantastic team, and all of our partners and stakeholders. So thank you again for that opportunity. Now to a couple highlights, and I want to really just give you a little sense of where we are on Better Bus. It's a big initiative, and open payment process as well, because two things that are coming up really in the very near future. And I apologize in advance. Between a couple days away with allergies and back, my voice is not the best. 48 months of ridership continuing to grow. What I want to highlight here is 2 weeks back-to-back of over 6 million, which is incredibly high. We're doing really well on the ridership front. Doing everything from the Cherry Blossom 10-miler, where we opened 2 hours early to support our community last week. We had over 12,000 entries before 7 a.m. to really make such an amazing event work well. Obviously, OV is a big deal going on in the region right now, and hopefully a big Stanley Cup run here for the Caps. We look forward to supporting all those fans, and lots of people taking at the Caps games. On the million note, we hit 1 million. It was interesting. We had our last board meeting, and that day was when we hit 1 million again. I'm happy to report yesterday was the 4th time we've hit 1 million. So that's 2 days back to back, and today is doing really well as well. So the system is really performing well on ridership, and as I mentioned, that means revenue as well. So we're really excited to have people back on the system. On the next slide, it's cherry blossom season, so Metro, as usual, is all in on cherry blossoms. We actually have a pop-up store. I welcome the board to visit just before you leave. It officially opens tomorrow, right next to Potbelly's here in L'Enfant headquarters. We're going to have a lot of our normal merch, and we look forward to spreading, I think Board Member Lowe would say, joy throughout the region on cherry blossoms.
Wait, so we can go into the store today, though?
Yeah.
If you're on the board?
You're the board, so yes, I think we'll figure that. I think we'll figure out how to get the padlock off. The Cherry Blossom Parade is also this weekend, so we want to expect a lot of bus detours, but obviously we'll try to get everyone around to celebrate the parade. Next up is I want to talk just quickly about Tap Ride Go. We are working towards our May launch date. It is an incredibly complex project to get done. As you'll see, there's a lot of different departments that are working hand in glove with our contractors, Little Pay, Cubic, and S-Traffic. There's two time check-ins a day. There's a lot of software across multiple continents all working together on this. There's still several key milestones to go, but we are working on this very diligently, and our goal here is still to work towards a May launch to support. As everyone remembers, World Pride is coming to our region, and we expect an enormous amount of visitors from outside the region, outside of America, and we want to really, that's another feature. We want to make it nice and easy for people to pay using the Metro system. The next up, as the board chair mentioned, we do plan on May giving a really extensive Better Bus update, but we want to give you a touch point today, specifically where some communications things that are happening. This is an enormous effort. I will say overall going pretty well. We will have hiccups. Some hiccups we know and we're working through. Others are going to happen. The goal is to have the least amount of them and, of course, make them the smallest possible. Really appreciate our partners. Our jurisdictional partners play a big role in this. And that's everything from some places have to move stop lines and bus stops. And other places, it's actually bus exchanges and changing routes. So generally speaking, that's happening on a daily and weekly basis with our partners. I just want to take a moment and thank them for all their work. On the flag installation, this is a couple days old, so we're probably getting close to a quarter, 25% done of the flag installation. I want to highlight that one. The trip planner, which is a big deal for people, we anticipate that being launched by the end of April. That'll start getting people some more certainty of where their route and their schedule is. But that we look forward to the end of April. The employee pick to actually execute the Better Bus will wrap up on April 18th. We work very collaborative with our ATU and 922 partners on that. And so that is a big piece to get all of our employees ready. On the next slide, on the same slide on the right, apologize. Board presentation, again, give an update today, back in May for a big detailed one. Big piece we wanted to highlight here is we're looking to do an elected officials and jurisdictional partner communication meeting starting ideally at the end of this month, all the way through July. So a good example might be working with our government relations and communications team. There's an enormous amount of elected officials across the 3 states, both from the local and state level and even the congressional level. We want to get all of the staff on their end to do communications, as an example, or community relations on virtual big calls to really go back and forth on communication and what we were hoping they could amplify for us. So it could be basic messaging to very detailed messaging, depending on the specific elected official in the specific area. But I want to highlight that type of example that we're building towards, starting towards the end of this month, but certainly very heavy in May and June. We're going to need those partners to really amplify our messaging. Lots of community outreach already happening, but ramping up very heavily at the end of this month into July. And you'll notice we're going to do school outreach really extensively July through September, because obviously this gets implemented when school is already over. Saying that in the sense of lots of concurrent activities. On the next slide, the bus network maps by jurisdiction, looking to get those some are done and looking by the end of the month on all of that. You'll see basically this slide is a variety of tools that'll be online. And again, things we'll ask our partners to push out, but really customer-centric tools, whether it's videos, naming, nomenclature, social media kind of campaigns, fact sheets, neighborhood profiles. There's so much of this happening really towards the end of April into mid-May. There's going to be just an enormous amount of customer-facing tools that we want to get out there. And then the next slide, wrap up here, which is a little bit more detailed in communication. So what we want to do really is about mid-May to the end of June is the 6 weeks we want to put most of our communications work to play. I think most people know it is very hard for people to pay attention to something. Like most people today on Thursday can't remember Monday and what happened, and especially the way our world is working right now. So we want to be as condensed as possible in mid-May through the end of June, with obviously communication that we've had over the last 2 years as the build towards that. So an enormous amount, especially around social media, press releases, again, jurisdictional media blitzes that we want to do. On those calls, we're going to ask if elected officials want to be out riding buses or at stops, making videos. If there's members of the senior team, or I would welcome if board members want to join on that. We're going to do a specific public information officer briefing for, again, the jurisdictional partners, which are sometimes different than the elected official partners, because everything, it's not all the same. We'll be out in the field a lot, including myself and the senior team. We plan on being out there very extensively for the week of launch. That could be on bus, it could be at a station, at a stop. We're going to be doing more employee town halls. I did one already this week. We got a couple more coming, I think, as early as next week. We'll be doing a lot of bus visits at the depots, like for morning or evening pullout. I've gone through this in Austin, bigger one than we're doing here. There's no question about it. The team and the consultant team has helped deliver this in multiple agencies across the country. So I will say, I think we got a really good plan. We've learned a lot of lessons. We are a little unique because of the 3 states. And so we will definitely need our partners to help us. But I think overall, what I've heard is the coordination in the states themselves. Again, I'm from DC, so we're going 3 states just to make the conversation work really well here. Across the 3 states is going very well on the roadway configuration, stop configuration, bus configuration, route planning, all of that stuff. But I think in May, we should be prepared to get into even more detail. But overall, things going pretty well. What I would ask is if you hear, say, an elected official or a jurisdiction that says, hey, what's going on with this or what's going on with that, Tom or myself, like depending on who it is, Mike Birch is our, I don't know if Mike's in the room, he is our, if we're Better Bus, I think the chair referred to him as czar. I'm not sure if we're supposed to use czar anymore, but Better Bus lead. But we have a massive team. Christie's team is you're going to see them take a much bigger role coming up towards the end of April as we pivot more to external and kind of communications. Regina, obviously government affairs, and Erica Cunningham on community engagement. So all of that really is building towards end of April and then pushing hard for a really hard 2 months. So hopefully that gives the board a good sense of where we generally are. And we welcome if you have ideas in groups of people, or if you know of people that are really important that they can help spread the word, if you could just let us know with that. So that's a little update on where we are on some of our big strategic rollouts here at Metro. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks in particular for your responsiveness on this, as several of us on the board have heard from constituents and elected officials and jurisdictional partners who are excited and anxious about the rollout. So it's great to see that there is a very robust strategy. We look forward to hearing even more about it at future board meetings. Please.
Sorry, this actually, it didn't touch on the piece that I'm actually not as worried about the communications piece as I am about, like, there's a capital piece to this, right? We're actually moving bus stops, decommissioning bus stops. There are these like huge shelters at some of these bus stops. When we move a stop, if it's moving to a place where there's parking right now, we got to move the parking. Like, who is responsible for what there and how's that going? And there's no way that all that's going to be done by July, right? So like, there must be some kind of interim plan and some kind of longer term plan. Who's responsible?
Yeah, great question, board member. So I think Tom sent the board an update last Friday.
Oh, I got to read that.
And then as we committed, I think about a week ago, every 2 weeks, we're going to have a big memo from Tom explaining a lot of those details. In May, we're going to come back with that as well. So a good example is by jurisdiction, they have tables built to say this bus stop, this one moves, this one just has a name change, this one does this. One thing I want to, I guess, maybe take the anxiety down a little bit is our team does this with our partners all the time. So we move a bus stop line multiple times a year, depending on jurisdiction. We move and close bus stops. This one is just more of it. There's no question. So some bus stops are not going to get moved, right? So DC will be the biggest lift here. There's no question. But we got a lot of work in Arlington and Prince George's and a bunch of other places as well. So sometimes we'll maybe shut a stop down. Like we still have stops shut down. When I came here, there were stops shut down near the White House because of Black Lives Matter Plaza was shut, and those stops were still there, as an example. So sometimes this takes...
I'm actually thinking of a shelter, an S-bus shelter that like still hasn't been moved.
Yeah, so
like, this is going to be hard to do.
And that's not that there's any fault. Sometimes it's designed to do it, wait till a project is happening on the road, do it then. So there's a variety of things, but that's why the comms part is actually, in our mind, the most important part, because signage out in the stops, awareness, and if we have to wait, 6 months to move a shelter, that doesn't matter, in the scheme of things. So, so there is a lot of work going on there daily. I would think Tom's next update will try to get a little bit more granular per jurisdiction on those kind of, lack of better, the tables of how many items there are and the ones that really have to get done and where the criticality. And then there'll be a few places we'll have temporary patterns because some of the work has to get done. But I want to give a lot of credit, especially on the DC side. They've done this really extensive because there's a regulatory process that has to go through of notification and all of that. And my understanding is that is going pretty well. But I'll double check if there's any issues on that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll just, on the Maryland side, I think good work and hats off to the team. I think we've talked about it before. The collaborative work with Prince George's recently on the bus transfers, which will enable us to hit schedule in Prince George's. And hats off to the Prince George's team for rolling up their sleeves and being one of only a few jurisdictions or transit providers that partnered with WMATA on the BBNR coordinated bus realignment. So, but I echo maybe something that Director Lowe said is on our side of the river, we are not going to be able to get all of the bus stops requested done in time. And so I think greater clarity on what that means to those planned bus stops. Are we going to serve them if there isn't, a bus pad or what have you? I think it is where we're at right now. And I think undoubtedly communications, and we have time, but I think giving us some clarity will be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, board members. So I believe at the staff level, that's pretty clear, but if we need to get that raised up to the board, so you have visibility of what, say, staff in Maryland are actually working with our staff, I see Tom over that we can get that more detailed in the next Friday's plan memo. So you get a little bit more visibility of maybe what the staff together are working through. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Great. With no further business to come before the board, we stand adjourned. Thank you for joining us today.